Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. It is kind of dark and still pretty early on a Wednesday morning. It's not as dark or as early as it normally is because technology just did not want to work for me today. My computer crashed right before I was getting ready to stop recording on this review. So I've done the whole thing once. Right when I was doing the comment section stuff, it just crashed and corrupted the whole video file. So I've got to try to rebound, try to rally for the show that we're getting ready to talk about. And if it is early on a Wednesday morning, I got my variant shirt on. There's only one character, although there'll be a few characters we talk about, but only one show that we could possibly be talking about inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we ain't got any time to waste. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Loki, Episode 5, Journey into Mystery. And man, this show is just, it's so good. Like, I can't get over how freaking good this show is. And the fact that it just turns out week after week after week and just hits home run after home run after home run, man. Like, literally, it just doesn't do anything wrong. And when we get to the scoring end, it's a really tight battle up at the top. And this is the one that's vying for that top spot. On initial watch, I think I liked last week's a little bit more. But this, it's like, it is right there. And I think, like, on the subtle, low-key end of things, this might be the sneaky best episode of the entire season. And yes, that Loki pun was completely intentional. It was organic and not intentional on the original shooting of this review, but it was so good I had to make sure I brought it back in because this episode does operate in a much more low-key manner. Now, there are huge spectacle moments. I mean, they're visually, this episode, we will talk about it, but wow. Like, there is some wow stuff, but the things that really hit in this episode are more on the emotional side of things, and those emotional beats and the things that just give you all the feels this week is really why I think on second, third watch, this is gonna be, like, by the end of the series, you're gonna be like, what was your favorite episode? And be like, I don't know, I really hope the finale is my favorite episode to make everything simple. But this episode, if you like last week, this is hitting in very many of the same ways. Like, that there is just a vibe and an urgency where it's like, this is the best stuff I think that we've seen in the Marvel television cinematic universe. And I'm pumped to see what we get next week, because if next week hits, this will easily be the best show I think that Marvel has put out. I mean, we had really, the one thing that the other two shows have had, specifically more WandaVision than Falcon and Winter Soldier, but strong finishes, specifically for, you know, one of our main characters, when you're talking Wanda and you're talking, you know, Falcon. So if you're able to do that with Loki and deliver an episode that like hits and leaves the imprint that it needs to leave, this is the best one that we've seen so far. And this week's MVP shout out has to go to someone who's been just stellar every single week, and we've talked about her without, I think, actually saying her name. But the score every week is just phenomenal. And this week, it popped in ways where I was like, how have I not said Natalie Holt's name once? I hope that I did, but in my initial thinking right now, I can't remember if I've actually said Natalie Holt is the composer of the show. And what she is doing from a composing standpoint is just, it's so good, man. I mean, that boom, 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 boom. Like, just that piece of composition is stellar, because you can use it in so many different ways, and Holt does. Like, she's able to dial that up so it really is, like, hitting you in, like, the middle of your stomach, and she's able to pull it back to allow those other inflections that she does to really pop and have those notes have different meanings at different times. And you get some of the most powerful don-don-don-don-nos of the entire show this week, and everything that she's doing, specifically this week with the score, it's just, like, it's the kind of wow that I had the first time I heard anything or recognized that Ludwig Göransson was composing something. And I really hope that Hulk can, take off in the same way that Göransson did with all the MCU work that he's done. This show, I hope, sets her up for many more things, because, wow, man, the things that hit this week, I give Natalie Holt's score the most credit, and that's why she's the MVP. But she's been stellar every week, and the score is just so good. It's so good. As is this whole show, and its creative team has been so impressive from jump. I mean, this is another excellent episode from Michael Waldron. What he's doing story wise and what he's doing character wise is just really, really solid stuff, because he's fleshing out these characters and building these characters up while simultaneously laying all the groundwork for whatever is to come in Phase 4. This feels like it's done the most overall MCU groundwork out of any of the shows. And what he's doing this week and the way that he's able to, again, give us some answers to some things, right? We end up someplace at the end of last week with Loki where you're like, I wonder where we are. We get to kind of find out where we are and learn some things about this place. But we still got that overlying mystery of, who's behind the TVA. And this week, again, is Screamin' Kang. The things that pop up this week that Waldron's got in here scream Kang to me, but he's doing it so well. I'm like, I can only go 99% sure it's Kang. There is that 1% possibility that, where we end up this week and where we're going doesn't lead to Kang, but man, does it certainly feel like it is. And, just everything that he's done. I love how this, show has just built Loki up in a different way, right? We talk about how amazing Tom Hiddleston was just jumping right back into the Avengers Loki, and how he doesn't have that heroic redemption arc that our Loki got, through the MCU, and the fact that made him more dangerous, specifically once he knew his future. And Waldron has now used this show to kind of give this Loki a similar arc and take him to a similar place, and maybe even to a better place than what we got with our Loki. Where they're taking the character has just been so impressive. And what he gives Hiddleston to do this week, and just what he does in general, specifically, like I said, on those emotional beats, I love everything that Waldron's doing. And you can see how, he has that insight about knowing stuff about Doctor Strange, having done a pass on the screenplay, that he's setting up things, I think, better than any of the other shows for what is coming in Phase 4. And I think it's Kang, but it might just be the stepping stones, even if we don't see him. I think he's laying all the groundwork for stuff that's going to lead to Quantumania, as well as the multiverse story that's getting ready to take off. But I think Waldron is doing some immediate groundwork and some real long play groundwork. And then, of course, the other big creative genius on this team is Kate Herron, and again is spectacular behind the camera. This week in particular, because we're in a totally different location, and one that is way more open than, say, the TVA. The way she chooses to show it off, there are a lot of wonderful landscape, widescreen shots where you could just kind of get this, rolling scope of the entire playing field that we're in this week, and everything she does visually is gorgeous. And I continue to love the color palettes that she chooses. Seems like every week she's got a different color she's really honing in on. We've seen red in the early episodes. We saw purple with Lamentis. This week, green is a big color pop for many different reasons. But all of it is just gorgeous to look at. And then how she just continues to set up her actors for the best version of their performances by where she's putting the camera and the way that she moves it around and the way she stages action. We get a wonderful action piece in the middle of this that's complete chaos, but obviously well choreographed chaos and well thought out chaos, and how that scene plays into the episode is just, it's so much fun. And when Herron and this whole team get to have fun, it's so enjoyable as a viewer. And then again, just where she takes these characters and how she gets us there, man. Some of the hints and some of the things she litters in this episode are really cool. And some of the background stuff. I think one of the things Aaron's done really well is while our focus might be, Hiddleston or Sylvie, she does a lot of interesting things. That chaotic scene that I'm talking about, lots of stuff going on in the background. And there's a couple things in the background of this episode where I was like, ooh, the Easter eggs. There was one in particular. There's a wonderful shot where they've got to kind of go into like a bunker of sorts. So the camera's like up top and it kind of comes down. As it comes down into that bunker, you see something like in the earth, and I was like, I don't know, but it looks kind of like. And then when I went back and freeze framed it and you found the right, like, yeah, they did something so freaking cool this week. Oh man, this show just is operating on like all the levels. And then we haven't even talked about the cast, who again is just stellar. I mean, Hiddleston. Like, what else can we possibly say about Tom Hiddleston? He's so good. And where they take Loki this week and what they give Hiddleston to do, just again allows him to evolve the character and change the character in ways you're like, man, like 3 episodes, this dude was still kind of like that psychopath from the Avengers movie, and now he's a completely different redeemable character, and the small moments where we get to see genuine Loki, and I think this episode we get to see the most genuine version of Loki that we've seen so far. Like, man, he's just able to take the character to places where you're like, everything he does is amazing. Of course, on the other side of that coin, you got Sophia DiMartino, and where she was in a position of power last week trying to find out what's going on with the TVA. And I don't want to really say too much about what's going on with her character, but what she does, what she's asked to do, and where they take Sylvie this week, it's getting better. Sylvie is getting better on a weekly basis as a character, and DiMartino's performance just continues to get better and better. And like I said, what they give her this week, the people she has to play with, like I'm so digging what they're doing, and I can't wait to see what happens with Sylvie. And it certainly feels like she is kind of she's gonna be one of the heroes at the end of this thing, and I'm pumped to see what they give her and where it sets that character up and what it sets it up for. Like, if there's gonna be more, if it's just this show, wherever it goes, I'm pumped to see what Sophia DiMartino will do with it. Gugu Mbatha Raw, of course, who was in that not position of power last week with Sylvie, also gets some stuff to do this week. Not really gonna talk about it, but Gugu Mbatha Raw just continues to keep you on your toes, man. Like, I think she maybe gave us a peek behind the curtain on some real stuff for her, but I would say the majority of it has been lies. And I think she's lying a few times this week. And one of the things that they give her to do, or one of the characters that she gets to interact with, is a character I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that character maybe could come into play, or maybe has a deeper tie to what's going on behind the scenes. And the couple scenes that they get this week, there's some neat stuff going on there. So I love what she's doing. Wunmi Masaku continues to just scene steal every time she's on camera. Like, she gets limited screen time, but she capitalizes on every single second she is on screen, and has made B-15 a character worthy of following and caring about. And what they give her this week, again, just super small, also really cool visually. Where they put her this week, I was like, that just enhanced the performance, just because the visual, watching her do her thing, was so wonderful. But she is a powerhouse, man, and like, the way she capitalizes on every second they've given her, she has never not popped in this show, and I just continue to love what she has given us and what it's done with this character that really didn't need to be one that we care about. And we do, I think, a lot because of what Masaku has brought to it. And maybe this is a mild spoiler, but like, we do get to see Mobius this week. Owen Wilson is involved in things. I mean, we've seen him in the trailer driving a car past the Sphinx. That hasn't happened yet in the show, so it was plausible to think we'd see him somewhere in the last 2, and he's here this week and just continues to do wonderful things. Like, he really is this Mobius character, and I love where the character's gone, and I'm fascinated to see where they go. I think there's some interesting pathways for Mobius to go next week, and I'm interested to see what the character does with the opportunities that he's presented, and just what Wilson does, because like I said, he's really become this character, and just the way he meshes with other characters on screen and the relationships that the character has now built certainly play into some of those feely vibes that we get. But I just love him and Hiddleston on screen together anytime that they're doing something. Like, I'm so here for it, and I love what he did this week. And there are obviously some other characters involved this week, specifically Richard E. Grant. He is phenomenal. Like, you don't bring Richard E. Grant into a show and not give him something really cool. And what they do with classic Loki, I love. But what they do with Kid Loki and Boastful Loki and Alligator Loki, I also loved. I loved everything that had to do with Loki variants in this episode. Some of the most fun stuff is around those characters, and some of the most surprising stuff. While I don't think Kid Loki popped the way I would have hoped he did, it seems like maybe one of the weakest teases that we've gotten so far for the potential Young Avengers. But, maybe he could get better. I wasn't like amazingly or blown away by Sophia DiMartino and absolutely adore her now. So I'll definitely give him opportunity to wiggle room to improve. But didn't pop quite how I thought he would. However, one of the things he said this week, I was like, oh damn. Really? That's okay. Well, that just makes the character someone that I am more interested to spend some time with. And Boastful Loki and Alligator Loki were great. Boastful Loki probably has the least to do with that group, and Alligator Loki gets one of the best stretches of the entire episode. Everything that Alligator Loki is doing is just amazing on a bunch of different levels. But that's it, man. Those are all my non-spoiler thoughts this week. I love everything that this show does, and on a weekly basis, it just impresses. And where we're going, like the things that we're revealed and shown, like I'm interested to see if it's really setting up, stuff for multiverse, stuff for Quantumania, if it's setting up stuff for Kang. I'm pumped to see where we go. But as far as scores go, well, it's that time. Let's get the C-Maniacs on up. There, the boys. Like I said, this show is it's so good, and this week is so solid. Like, it's, again, as close to perfect as I think you're going to get with this show, but as much as like the story is hitting and the performances have been wonderful and the score this week is some of the best that we've gotten, and just what they're doing with the characters and what we're getting from a performance level, while it's all been phenomenal and near perfect, I'd still, on initial watch, give last week a little bit of an edge. And because of that, we're going 4.7 C-Maniacs out of 5 for Loki Episode 5. I think on watches 2, 3, I might move that up to like even with last week, or maybe a little ahead of it. There's just the subtlety of the episode. I don't think it's fully sank in on me, but just I loved everything that it was doing this week. So 4.7, that's not a knock. It's not a knock whatsoever, man. This show is so damn near perfect. I think we're going to get there by the end of episode 5, and if we do, it will cement it as the best show that Marvel has put out so far this year. But I'm loving everything Loki is doing, specifically what episode 5 is doing. But now it is your turn. I want to know, what are you thinking about? If you haven't watched the episode, my non-spoiler crew that I do this for, did I get you psyched? Are you pumped? Are you going to rush home and hit play as soon as you get home? What are you looking forward to? What are you hoping we get answers to? What do you hope we get to see this week? What have I said that's got you pumped about the episode? Anything you're thinking. If you haven't watched it, goes down below. And if you have watched it, what popped for you this week, man? Who's your MVP? Was it Natalie Holt? Was it Kate Herron, Michael Waldron, Tom Hiddleston, Sophia DiMartino? Who was popping? What were you really digging this episode? Keep it spoiler free, but let me know where this episode lands for you in the course of the season. All those things, good, bad, and indifferent about Loki Episode 5. Journey into mystery. Where are we headed? What is that mystery? You can let me know down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you do, you want to come hang out with the C-Man as we approach our final week of Loki. You want to be here for all the coverage, all the reveals, all the answers, all the just pure awesomeness, and you haven't yet, you want to show a little love support to this old guy, just anything that we're doing when I'm talking to you, you just dig what we're doing, well then come, man. I suggest joining the C-Maniac Nation. You can do that by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man, and I am signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.